Disclaimer. Before I start this video, I want to thank Akira Toriyama for allowing this passion project to happen. The very fact that this game even exists is a huge kudos to how much he cares about the Dragon Ball franchise, and the fact that it exists as a whole, huge thanks to him. And it is a damn shame that he never got to see this fully released, so huge thanks to Akira Toriyama. And on that note as well, Sparking Zero is not only one of the best Dragon Ball games to date, it is also one of the best fighting games to date. Yeah, it's that good. However, I will be discussing its flaws here because every game has its flaws, but I just want to get out the gate that there may be slight bias here as this is the first week of the game coming out. However, I will try to be as unbiased as possible when talking about this game. So thank you, Akira Toriyama, and enjoy the video, guys. So Sparking Zero is finally here after 17 years and a good long year of waiting for this game to come out. It's finally here, and I couldn't be more happy to be talking about this game because as an OG Raging Blast 2 player back in the day, this game hits every stride for me. I can honestly say that with some tweaking here, Sparking Zero could be the best Dragon Ball game ever released. And I'm being dead serious, and even excluding the original games, this has been the best Dragon Ball game I have played since Budokai 3. Yeah, this game is incredible. It has its flaws for sure, and we'll be discussing them. But in general, Sparking Zero has hit every stride for me, and is arguably one of the best fighting games of all time. Now, I have to preface all of that with actual, in-game mechanics, and the graphics, and everything that makes up the game. So instead of making a review, because the game literally just came out, it's still in early access at the time of this recording, I'm just going to be talking about the overall game and why I think as a foundation it is the best we've gotten in ages. It is far better than Xenoverse 2, it is far better than Fighter Z, it's better than Breakers and that Kakarot garbage. It is fantastic, okay? Sparking Zero is a huge callback for the OG fans, and it does everything justice. It has some niggling things here and there, and it does take it down a bit for me, but luckily these things can and likely will be fixed post-release. So we'll be talking about those later, but for now, what is quite frankly the best part about this game? It has to be the gameplay, and it is the gameplay. The gameplay is a 10 out of 10. The gameplay here is the best in any Dragon Ball game, easily. If you're going to purchase this game, purchase it for the gameplay alone. The gameplay alone is worth its purchase price, okay? A 10 out of 10 gameplay with some excellent moves. The fact that everything feels so right to their respective characters like Goku, Vegeta. Everyone just feels like they have their own move set that matches the character. And it feels responsive as ever. More responsive now that we're going back to the old Budokai movement system, where you have to dodge with R1, you have to press certain movements to actually start getting out of the way. The fact that you have to use the OG controls as well. It takes a little bit of getting used to, and I'll be honest, the controls are not my favorite. I'm coming from a different game, Raging Blast, so our controls are a little bit different, and I hope they do add more control options in the future. But talking pure gameplay, the actual ability to finally clash again, and this time you get to clash with melee attacks as well, so if you keep punching, if you keep pressing square at the same time as your opponent, you get into a clash. Clashes are finally back in game. I'm so happy they finally brought it back. We haven't had that in ages. And on top of that, you can finally transform mid-game, and each form has its own benefits and drawbacks. Like, this is what I've been asking for. This is what I wanted Xenoverse to do. They still haven't done it. This is everything I've been asking for. Every character, most characters can transform, and even the ones that don't are balanced so that they can have a fighting chance. Now, that being said, this does not mean the characters are actually balanced, and we'll get into why later, but the actual gameplay, the transformations are excellent. I am so glad we finally went back to the OG system, because this system I think is the most fun. That way you can play as a base form Goku or a base form Gohan, for example, and transform and get those benefits rather than having to transform and have those benefits before the game starts. Or not have them at all in Xenoverse's case, where you actually just start out in the form with no benefits. Here you can transform mid-game and you get all the benefits of the form. It feels really good. And on top of that as well, you can customize the characters, you can change costumes, you can get certain items for your characters. It plays exactly like how Budokai used to back in the day, and even Raging Blast as well, where you can customize some light customization. Here you have just as much equal opportunity to customize for most of the characters, and it feels awesome. It really gives the characters more personality now that I can change them to be how I want them to look. I can finally give Super Saiyan God Goku the Whis outfit from Resurrection F, just like in the manga, because no game that's had God Goku let you change his costume. But in this game you can, so I'm finally rocking Super Saiyan God Goku with the Whis outfit, and it looks fantastic. I'm really glad I can make these changes now, because of course in games like Xenoverse you cannot. They're stuck to their preset costumes. So the fact that I can and be Super Saiyan God, it is just a dream come true. And another thing to mention as well is the huge cast here. The amount of content you get on day one is actually insane. You don't get 100, you don't get 130, not 150, not 170, 188 characters at launch. That is absolutely wild. That surpasses any previous record in any fighting game, any Dragon Ball game. You get nearly 200 characters at launch and an additional 20 coming in DLC. That is an incredible deal, and you get to play as a huge variety as well. You get characters from Super, you get characters from GT, you get to play as different characters from the main series such as Yajirobe and Master Roshi. The cast here is massive, and I'm so glad that they took the time to put these characters in, as well as give them their own unique movesets. Like for example, Master Roshi can actually transform as well into his buff form. They didn't need to do this, so the fact that they did, it's just such a great thing to see, because it shows that they care, and it shows that this game has so much passion put into it. The fact that there are so many characters with their own movesets, most of them pertaining to their transformations as well. Like Bojack, for example, has his transformation, even though he's, super forgettable. But regardless of him, the actual level of detail and the amount of characters they put in is to be commended, because this is so much content that you're getting with this game that I think that as well makes it worth its purchase price. The actual cast, the amount of content here, the customization as well, just all the level of detail for the player is just excellent, and I absolutely love the fact that this game is hitting on all strides where I want it to. The gameplay and the customization. Now, let's talk about the other modes as well. The story mode, for example, right? The story mode here is a bit repetitive. It introduces a new thing that we've seen in the very old Dragon Ball games, a what-if scenario storyline. And this is cool. However, the actual way to obtain these what-if scenarios, if you don't know, is very, very tedious, and I think it needs a patch immediately. That being, you have to defeat the opponent, or do certain choices in a very short amount of time, which is near impossible because of how difficult the actual AI is. Now, the AI is going to naturally be more difficult. This is a more difficult arena fighter game we're talking about here, so they are going to be more difficult. However, in tangent with the time limit you have to get the what-if scenarios, it becomes a little repetitive and annoying at times to actually get these scenarios to happen. For example, what I'm currently doing, fighting as Goku Black, if I want to get an alternate scenario for Goku Black's storyline, what I have to do is defeat Vegito Blue in under 2 minutes. How the fuck do you expect me to do that when the AI is so cracked? And this wouldn't be a problem if they just let you have more time, but it's such a short amount of time that by the time you're about to defeat him, the game just ends. I actually made a short about this. If you want to check out the shorts I have in the description, I made a short about this where the game just flat out ends when I actually defeat him. So it's just, it seems a little restrictive. I feel like they really need to up the time limit or make it a different scenario, because it shouldn't be based on the amount of time. It really should just be, if you defeat him, you get an alternate scenario. If you don't, then you don't get the alternate scenario, because that's basically what happens. Because as many of you know, Zamasu did not defeat Vegito, the time limit ran out. So I really feel like if you actually defeated Vegito, it should be an alternate scenario, not based on any amount of time that restricts you from being able to get the what-if scenario, because it just makes it more restrictive and just not fun. Really, if I'm trying to get for an alternate scenario, I want to just play the game normally, except change certain parts of the story. I don't want to have to be constantly worrying about a time limit. And this is even worse when you go back to the earlier levels, like with Goku. If you want to defeat Raditz, you have to do it in another, I think, a minute and a half to get the alternate scenario to happen. That's very restrictive and very, very tedious. It's just not fun to do when you're first starting out. So hopefully there will be a balance patch for this, because otherwise the what if scenarios are kind of lame. not lame. I shouldn't say lame, but it's just a little annoying to do, and hopefully if they balance this out, it can be more rewarding to do, because I like seeing the scenarios actually play out. It's just such a pain in the ass to do it in under a certain time limit, and I hate when games do this in general, have a time limit for these sort of things. So hopefully they reach the time limit, because if they do, I guarantee you more what if scenarios will pop up for more people, rather than restricting it to an arbitrary time limit and the scenario doesn't happen. So that's one of the big negatives I have about the story, but otherwise the actual story is pretty good. The gameplay, of course, carries the entire thing because I'm enjoying the new mechanics. I love the voice acting. The voice acting is much better here. It is not like how they show in the gameplay. The actual voice acting during the story mode is fantastic. For the most part, there are some characters that are a little iffy, but Goku, Jiren, and Piccolo especially sound really good. So the actual voice acting is excellent. So the actual story mode itself consists of a couple characters, and of course they have their own unique branches, and they're roughly about an hour to 2 hours to complete. It depends how good you are at the game, because of course the AI here is significantly harder, so when you're dealing with that, it becomes a little arbitrary, a little tedious at times, but otherwise it is a fun story mode. I think you are going to get what you bargained for here. I think you're going to get enough for your money here, is what I should say. So the story mode is very good, but I'll have to give it some more time before I can give it an official rating. Now, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but talking about the AIs and the actual difficulty of the game, it's certainly challenging. It is the most challenging game I've played in a little while in terms of fighting because of how the AI here is significantly harder and more aggressive than in previous games. As a matter of fact, I would venture to guess that the AI here is more difficult than most players you're going to be seeing, and that's due to the fact that they are more aggressive. And thanks to the new dodging mechanic as well, they are able to dodge and predict you much more easily. In the gameplay, you'll see that the AI tends to dodge and is able to pretty much use all of their abilities to dodge you at once. And often it does feel like a lot, especially considering that the AI already has the same amount of health and all that stuff. So the fact that they can also do so many different things at once can be a little overwhelming. And I do think that it's a little too much, especially if you're trying to go for a what if scenario. It can be very difficult to go for a what if when the AI is so hard. Now, once you learn the mechanics, it does get a bit easier, but it's still extremely difficult. And for the average person, even on normal difficulty, it's going to be a pain in the ass to get through because the AI is very difficult. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the fact that it's more of a challenge. I definitely appreciate that. But when combined with the what if scenarios and just in general the time limit, it can be a little restricting at times when it feels like I'm constantly buried by time. If I don't get this done by a certain amount of time, or if I don't beat them by a certain amount of time, then the game ends and you can't obviously beat them because it's limited. So hopefully they just expand the time limits and maybe make some tweaks to the AI, not necessarily easier, but make it so that they can't, always dodge or be as aggressive as they were, because they are very aggressive. They will constantly chase you, and often if you're fighting against someone like Vegeta, he can go for combos as high as 30, 40, or even 50 at times, which is absolutely insanity. So yeah, please give an AI balance change or just do something about the AI, because they are very difficult. Now, that being said, that doesn't necessarily ruin the experience, because it can still be a ton of fun, especially when they are challenging enough that you actually have to try to learn how to play the game. It can be fun. It is a lot of fun, but some tweaking could benefit the AI and the game for sure. So some tweaking there could really benefit the game. And naturally that's going to happen. It's a fighting game, things like this, balancing stuff, it's going to happen. So I am leaning on more forgiving on this one. But man, is it aggravating when I'm fighting against, giant Vegeta, or just fighting anything like an actual boss battle. It can be very difficult when it suddenly feels like you're fighting against like a high ranked player, when in reality players are actually easier than the bots at most times. So ultimately, I think the AI is a little more difficult, and I think it just needs some balancing adjustments. And also the dodging mechanic needs to be nerfed immediately. The fact that you can use 2 sparks to actually dodge entirely needs to be nerfed, or buffed, I don't know how you'd call that. But it should just take 1 charge to dodge, not 2. I think that's a little too much, but just some balancing issues could balance the game for sure, and make it a more enjoyable experience. So I have rambled a little bit on here. This is getting to be a way longer video than I thought it was going to be, especially since this game's only been out for a week. But again, this game is awesome. Buy this game now. Give them your money. Show them that we care about these games and that we want more games like this, and not another fucking Xenoverse 3 with a billion DLCs. This game's gonna have DLC, but it already has plenty of content at launch to keep you entertained and keep you coming back. Especially with customization that I talked about, the shop. The amount of stuff that you can do in-game is just almost limitless. So this game is worth the asking price, and anyone who got the early access, I had a ton of fun as well. But the game does come out when this video goes live, so the 11th of October, Friday. When this video is up, of course, that's when the game will be out for everyone. So buy this game if you haven't already. It is absolutely worth its purchase price, and absolutely one of the best fighting games of all time, and arguably could be the best Dragon Ball game of all time. But that's going to be it from me. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. I could always use a new addition to the Dark Ops army. And share this video as well. I'd like to see what you guys think about this game, who you're maining. And if you're maining Whis, please leave the channel. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. This is Dark Ops, signing off.